You think your home is your safe space until the people meant to protect the neighborhood turn it into a nightmare. Imagine pouring your savings into a dream house, only to be blindsided by petty rules, endless fines, and a neighbor who seemed obsessed with controlling every detail of your life. What started as a small disagreement quickly spiraled into a war, one that pushed me to the edge and forced me to fight back in a way no one saw coming. The question is, how far would you go when your own community becomes the enemy?
When my family and I moved into Willow Creek, it felt like a fresh start. My wife Anna and I had saved for years to afford a home where our kids, Sam and Lily, could grow up safely. The streets looked perfect, the lawns manicured, the neighbors friendly enough. I even installed solar panels, thinking it was both eco-friendly and a smart long-term investment. At first, life felt almost too good to be true, until I noticed one particular neighbor always watching, always taking notes.
Her name was Karen, late 50s, with a clipboard that never left her hands and an expression that suggested every blade of grass in the neighborhood answered to her. At first, I dismissed her constant staring as harmless curiosity, but over time, her disapproving glances toward our solar panels told me otherwise. She wasn't just a neighbor, she was the HOA's unofficial watchdog. And soon, she'd make it clear that my family and I were her next project.
The first clash came at an HOA meeting. I sat among the neighbors as the board discussed community aesthetics. Buried in their polite phrasing was a direct jab at me. My solar panels didn't conform. I raised my hand, calmly explaining that they were within legal code and a benefit to everyone. But as I spoke, I saw Karen in the front row, smirking as if she'd already won. That night, I walked home with a pit in my stomach, sensing this was only the beginning.
Soon after, the letters began. Violations appeared in my mailbox weekly. My grass half an inch too tall, my recycling bin too close to the curb, my children's bikes left on the driveway. Each fine carried a threat: pay up or face legal action. Anna grew anxious. The kids asked why strangers kept photographing our house, and I felt the noose tightening. What once felt like home now felt like a trap, and Karen's smirk lingered in my mind with every notice I opened.
One afternoon, I caught two HOA board members crouched in my flower beds, measuring with a tape. When I demanded to know what they were doing, Karen appeared on the sidewalk, smug as ever, claiming it was a routine compliance check. I hadn't given permission, my privacy, my property, none of it mattered to them. Neighbors peeked from their blinds, whispering, too afraid to step in. In that moment, I realized this wasn't about rules, this was about power, and they intended to break me with it. It escalated into something darker. At night, I'd catch Karen parked across from my house, scribbling in her clipboard under the dim glow of a street lamp. My kids became afraid of playing outside. Anna worried we were being watched constantly, and truthfully, we were. The HOA had turned our neighborhood into a surveillance zone, and Karen was their willing enforcer. I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. I was living in a war zone disguised as suburbia. I'd had enough. I hired a lawyer and gathered every letter, every fine, every photo. When we walked into court, I was no longer the nervous homeowner begging for peace. I was ready for battle. Across the aisle sat Karen and the HOA board, whispering furiously, their confidence crumbling. I presented evidence of harassment, trespassing, and financial abuse. The tension was thick as the judge leaned forward, glaring at the board. Karen's smug smile was gone, replaced by panic. The truth was out, and their empire of intimidation was falling apart. When the judge's gavel came down, the sound echoed like thunder. The HOA was stripped of authority, their fines voided, their tactics exposed as illegal.
I felt Anna squeeze my hand as relief washed over us. Across the room, Karen stormed out, her face twisted in rage. For the first time since we'd moved in, I could breathe freely. The nightmare was ending, but the fallout was only beginning.
Within weeks, Karen's house went on the market. The woman who had once ruled the streets with her clipboard couldn't face the community she'd terrorized. Neighbors whispered as the for sale sign went up, some shaking their heads, others smiling in quiet relief. It was poetic justice. Her reign ended, not with power, but with exile. Willow Creek had finally turned against its self-appointed queen.
The neighborhood began to change. Without the HOA shadow looming, families stepped outside again. Children laughed and played on sidewalks without fear of being fined. We formed a new, resident-led committee, not to control, but to protect. Rules were simplified, harassment banned, and transparency ensured. For the first time, Willow Creek felt like a real community, not a dictatorship. Standing on my porch, watching Sam and Lily draw chalk on the driveway, I realized we hadn't just won a fight, we'd reclaimed our freedom.
Even now, years later, I sit on that same porch, coffee in hand, Anna by my side, and I think about what we endured. The stress, the fear, the endless battles, none of it was wasted. We proved that even against powerful bullies, one voice can make a difference. But I can't help wondering, how many others are still trapped in their own Willow Creeks, afraid to speak up? Sometimes the only way to protect your home is to fight for it. And when you do, victory tastes sweeter than you can imagine.